It's a little crazy with the kid and the dog.
I can't get my video to work today.
That makes me look adventurous.
Oh, sorry.
Oh. I know. Oh no.
Welcome to Vegas.
That was the worst ever. That was so bad.
Hi, good morning, everybody. How are you? And welcome to the first session of day 4 of Bankruptcy Week. Really glad everyone was able to join us. I'm going to put up our first slide here, and it'll only take 1 minute because I've done this 3 or 4 times now, so I should be practiced and performing with an expert hand. Okay, super easy. Welcome. You are joining us for Don't Leave Money on the Table, Getting Paid and Better Serving Your Clients in 2020 with LawPay's Jordan Turk. There's been a little bit of a disagreement over how her last name is spelled, but thankfully she'll be up here in just a couple minutes and she'll be able to clear that all up for us. First, a couple of housekeeping notes. You'll see that there is a chat window on the right-hand side. That's just if you need to communicate any technical issues you might be experiencing. You can also communicate with fellow attendees, which is great. There will be a Q&A as Jordan wraps up her presentation. I don't think we have any polls today. We just have that note for whenever we do. Looks like a no. So a little less work for you guys. You just get to kick back and watch the show. There's also a couple of code of conduct notes, kind of goes without saying, but we're saying it, just to use inclusive language, no threats or intimidation, and no offensive comments. We just, be pleasant, all that jazz. Moving on, and we're back. Don't leave money on the table. We're gonna bring Jordan up in just a minute here. I believe one of our wonderful moderators will be dropping our code of conduct in the chat if they haven't already. And we'd also like to run through a couple of the facts as we are hopefully getting to the mid or end of the pandemic. It just depends on what's going on in the news today, but we do have a method. So since the pandemic started, we are seeing that about 3 million people are not paying their mortgages, whether it's because of unemployment or any other expenses. About 1 in 4 small businesses have shut down. So the last I had seen was about 24%. And 22 million people have filed unemployment. So during the last recession that we saw like this, bankruptcy filings went up about 74%. So for these reasons and others, a lot of experts are expecting a tsunami of bankruptcies in the near future. So we are a bankruptcy filing software. We have firsthand experience in this field, and so we thought it would be a good idea to put together this bankruptcy week. The economy will be changing, and we wanted to bring in experts and professionals who have a lot of experience in these fields, such as Jordan. So I would like to bring her on. Quick introduction for Jordan. She has a very impressive resume. Jordan is the content and compliance manager at LawPay. Jordan is also a practicing attorney in Texas. Her expertise include appeals, pre and post nuptial agreements, complex property division, and highly contentious custody cases. Jordan's a graduate of the University of Texas at Austin and went on to earn her JD at the University of Arkansas School of Law. She had been practicing with a high asset family law firm in Houston before returning to LawPay. I'm going to wrap up her accolades as I invite her onto stage. She has authored and co-authored many articles that can be found with the Texas Bar and online. She's passionate about giving back to her community and also taking as many pro bono cases as possible. And finally, the big one, in 2019, honored recipient of the Harris County Bench Bar Pro Bono Award for outstanding service by an individual. And here she is. How did you like all that, Jordan? I feel like I nailed it.
I mean, I love it. I'm also an attorney, and so I just, I'll take praise anywhere I can get it. Words of affirmation, always accepted and encouraged.
Gosh, not even faking that humility. Just stop. No, I get it. No, well, there goes my mic. No, you earned it, and we're so really happy to have you here. We wanted everyone to get to know you a little bit. And unless you have any questions for me, I'll hop back on in about 40 minutes to start our Q&A.
Perfect.
Here, let me remove this media. Let me remove me. And
all right, guys, so I'm just going to upload my presentation real quick, so bear with me as technology is maybe not my strongest suit. Let's see here. All right. All right, here we go. So welcome, guys, and thank you all so much for that introduction. It was so nice. So as you all know, I work for LawPay. I'm still most definitely a practicing family law attorney, and I did high asset family law for about 4 years with the law firm of Coons Fuller. There's a few offices here in Texas, and so I got to learn everything from the ground up, from motion drafting to brief drafting, to trials to hearings, and then also how to get paid and chasing after payments from clients, which I'm sure every single person in this webinar has had an issue with at one point in their practice. So, oh, sorry, sound is not good. Oh no, okay, so I can speak louder. Please just let me know if this is still not good. Oh no, okay, so let me do this first then. Okay. Weird. Okay, so hopefully I'll just speak slower, but let me know if this is still an issue as it goes in and out. Weird. Sounds like I'm underwater. And then real quick, let me see if I can do this. Good. Okay. That's not right. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. Just technical difficulties that we're trying to work out. Okay, maybe it's good now.
So far, it sounds pretty good. I was about to hop back in just to kind of buffer it while you were trying to work it out, but it looks like you have it now. Can you test?
Okay.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. I'll hop back out.
Okay, thanks, guys. Okay, got it. So hopefully, but y'all keep telling me, please, if it's garbled or if some of y'all are experiencing difficulties. So just let me know. But thank you. I never have a problem with speaking louder. So strange, my mom would say. All right, so going back to it. So while I was working at Coons Fuller and I was having to track down payments because, hey, my pay was tied to what I billed and collected, right? So if I didn't collect any payments from clients, this was a huge issue for me. And I got very good about sending emails and working with clients and trying to get paid from anybody, from any source. So I don't care if it was a client that was paying me, if it was opposing counsel, if it was a receiver that was appointed in a case, if they paid by cash, check, credit card, I'll take everything because it impacts my bottom line at the end of the day and whether I get paid. And then after practicing for about 4 years with family law, I went back to LawPay. I had interned for them way back when. And so I went back here. And so I still have some family law cases. And actually, if y'all could put in some well wishes or some, I would say, thoughts or encouragement, I have a full-blown Zoom trial in June, which is not good, and it's going to be a complete mess. I represent grandparents, and mom is now pro se, and dad is now pro se, and we have to have a full-blown custody trial over Zoom, and it should be very interesting. But any words of encouragement I will absolutely take. And then, of course, they'd already addressed this before with housekeeping, but we'll take questions right after, so we'll do a Q&A after everything is over. And so hopefully I can get to all of them there. If not, happy to email or converse with y'all in any way, shape, form, or fashion. And I know also that not everybody in here does solely bankruptcy. So I'm going to give tips and tricks for general practitioners as well as bankruptcy attorneys, kind of depending on what you're doing so that you can get something out of this. All right. And with that, let's talk about how you can get more money and don't leave any on the table. Okay, we already talked about me. Okay, so as far as what we're going to talk about real quick. So I already went through the introduction. We're good. So next would be why should you accept credit card payments? And I'm not here to kind of shill for LawPay or kind of blow smoke up anywhere, right? I'm going to give you hard data. I'm going to give you facts as to why this is important to your business and why you might get left in the dust if you don't take credit cards. We're also going to talk a little bit about demystifying credit card processing fees. Right, so what exactly is an interchange fee? Why exactly am I being charged 4% of every transaction, when I take a credit card? Or what exactly is all of this, and why are you taking my money? And we'll talk about online payments in the age of COVID-19, because obviously the landscape is changing right now, especially for the legal profession, so this is important. We'll also talk about IOLTA compliance, which is scary, and you should be a little bit afraid of it, but very manageable, and I'll kind of take you through it, and I'll take you through why this is important. We'll also talk about increasing and improving client acquisition, right? So how do you get a client in the door? How do you keep them there? And how do you get them to retain you right then and there? I'll also talk about improving your processes, like billing and collections and all that wonderful stuff. Like, when are you sending your bill? When are you following up? Are you getting paid? Are you seeing people actually paying their bills on time? Things like that. We'll also talk about PCI compliance, since that's close to my heart. So for LawPay, I used to be the PCI compliance administrator. And that's essentially just a fancy word to make sure that you're taking credit cards in a secure fashion. We'll talk about it. It sounds scary. It's not. And then lastly, we'll talk about improving your client experience, right? So how you can give your client benefits so that they want to pay you, and that they want to be there, and they want to be doing this with you. Right? And then also, what really, really annoys me is I hate attending an hour-long CLE or a webinar and not learning anything new or not gaining any practical tips from it, right? It's kind of like when you sit through your 4th COVID-19 CLE and they all tell you the same thing, right? Wake up in the morning, have a set schedule, put some clothes on, and take frequent breaks for your mental well-being. I get it, I know it, but I want something practical from this, right? So my goal is to give you tips and to give you information that maybe you didn't know before, and tips that can increase your bottom line and increase the revenue for your firm. That's my goal. If I've done any of that whatsoever in any way, shape, form, or fashion, I will have succeeded in my personal goal. All right, so my big thing is, there's no getting around it, right? Attorneys work, and paralegals too, attorneys work for a flat fee or they work off of an hourly rate, right? So I don't know about you, but I don't like working for free. So that's why I just love this quote. So if billing and collections are the lifeblood of your practice, which of course they are, you need to do everything you can to reduce friction and increase predictable, reliable, and on-time payments in your practice, right? And the big key for me on that one is reduce friction, right? How do I make it the easiest way possible for a client to go and see my invoice and immediately pay me, right? How do I get that money in my pocket the fastest and the most painless way possible? And this brings you to, why do you even accept online payments, right? So today's tech delivers effortless experiences, right? So you look at Amazon, which everybody is now overly familiar with if you weren't before, thanks to COVID-19 and Corona. But you can pay with the click of a button, right? Same with Uber, you can pay with the click of a button. Netflix, you can watch anything you want, including Tiger King, which everybody needs to watch, it's amazing. But you can do anything you want with the click of a button, right? So this is what consumers have kind of come to expect, and this is what your clients have come to expect from their service providers, especially with regard to payment, right? Again, Amazon, I can click a button and it's paid. So that's part of it. And then so you have to ask yourself, am I providing this effortless experience for my clients when it comes to payments too? And if I'm not, why not? Technology isn't going anywhere, right? Technology expands exponentially. So online payments aren't going anywhere, and you can either adapt or kind of get left behind, right? This is happening, and you just have to accept it, right? There's no kind of bucking against tradition here. This is happening. And especially during COVID-19, this becomes even more important to limit payments and to limit contact because nobody wants to pay in person anymore, right now at least, and nobody wants to pay in cash. And the question becomes, are you leaving money on the table if you're not offering these payment services? I mean, Netflix in the first quarter of 2020 alone added 22 million or added 16 million users, right? They had a 22% jump over last year, and all of it basically due to COVID-19, right? So the question becomes, am I doing something that's going to have a bad impact on my practice if I don't take these credit cards? So look at this. So as far as hard stats and statistics, so TSYS came out with some new ones. So your clients want payment options, right? So 79% of people, 79% prefer to pay by credit or debit card, right? So no cash, no check, 79% credit or debit card. 74% of households pay bills online, which I'm sure most of the people in this webinar also pay bills online. And then 79% of people have switched to paperless billing. And again, I'm sure that most people in this chat, or most people that are on it, you know, pay their car note online, or, you know, pay their credit card statement and they get the statements online, things like that. And then this is a big one too. 70% of consumers say having multiple ways to pay their bill increases their satisfaction. So I think it's very easy to say, why would I provide credit cards? It seems like a very infinitesimal kind of benefit, right? Like, oh, they want, you know, clients want these payment options, but does it actually impact their psyche and their psychology kind of a deal? And it does. 70% like the fact that they have these options. And if I can give a client options to make them feel happier about me and about my firm and about my work so that they want to pay their bill, that's great. And then also more people, I know this isn't going to shock anyone, right? But more people are ditching their checkbooks. So 10% don't even use it. You know, and I thought about this. The last time that I used a checkbook, I believe was in law school to pay for my rent, back when I could have a 2-bedroom apartment for $700 in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I miss it. But so 10% don't even use it. 45% even rarely carry it, right? So over half of consumers, 55%, don't even carry or use checks anymore. And so you have to think about that when you have clients coming in and they have meetings or it's potential new client consults and things like that, they don't have a check. And if I want them to pay immediately, how do I get them to pay immediately? Right? If they don't have a check and I don't want them to go and leave out the door to go and get a money order or something. So what do I offer them? Well, I can absolutely take credit card. Don't even worry about it. And then also, speaking of checks again, most people never even write a personal check, or they only do so a few times a year. So look at that, 38% never write one. 20% only write a personal check a few times a year. 61% of 18 to 24-year-olds never write checks at all. And then since 2010 to 2016, there's been a 20% decline in bills paid by check. Now, I'll ask you the question, from 2016 to 2020, so to present, I would imagine that that number has doubled, if not quadrupled, now that people are paying more online. So just something to think about for your practice as you go forward is, why are you not offering this to your clients, right? And we'll talk about the fees later on in this, because I know that's, you know, basically that's everybody's sole hesitation from taking credit cards, right? Is that I don't want to have to lose out on money. So we'll talk about that in a little bit too. And then people's expectations of businesses of businesses are shifting too, right? So 65% expect to be able to pay for services online. Think about everything that you pay online. Also, think about everything that you pay for online now that you didn't before COVID, right? Maybe you weren't paying for groceries online and picking it up, but now you are. And some of this stuff is going to stick around, right? Like grocery services, things like that. People are going to still expect, after COVID hopefully subsides, people are still going to expect to be able to pay for things online, including their legal fees, right? And then 79% expect local service providers to offer the same payment options as big national brands. Because what you don't want is clients saying, I can pay for my orders and invoices on Amazon, but I can't do the same thing with my legal fees. Why? Why? You know, they're going to ask that. And if you can't answer that in a question that they like, they're just going to find somebody else that's going to do it and that's going to be able to take, you know, payment cards or payment plans. So online payments let you, one, improve communication with your client, right? I can send an invoice immediately and say, hey, here's how much you owe. Or I can tell them, I can send them a bill at any point in time during the month to say, here's how much you owe right now, or here's this fee that you owe that you need to pay immediately. So there's this constant kind of contact. And you also offer your clients a 24-hour virtual service, right? They could go in, they can pay at any time. And it also puts the ability to pay right in your client's hands. Now, as an attorney or paralegal or legal assistant that might be on this webinar, I'm sure all of y'all are familiar with a type A personality and how everybody likes control. And I like to be able to control every facet of my life. Do I need help or medical attention with this? Maybe, but it's fine, and I'm working on it. But you want this type of control, and a lot of these clients through this terrible time in their life, be it bankruptcy, divorce, everything in between, and this gives them that little bit modicum of control, like this is something that they can control in their life, which might seem infinitesimal to you, but it actually has a pretty big impact on the back end for them. And this also, my favorite thing is using online payments like LawPay, it provides you instant payment confirmation, right? My favorite sound in the world is to hear my little email ding when emails come in from LawPay saying that a payment's been made to me. Favorite sound on the face of the earth. No holds barred on that one. And then this also appeals to, paying online also appeals to younger tech-savvy clients, right? And when I say younger, I don't mean 18 to 24-year-olds. I'm saying 30 to 40-year-olds. Those are going to be your younger tech-savvy clients right now. So don't just discount it and say that this is just such a millennial thing and that, you know, my clients are still always going to pay by checks, because that's not the case. And now let's talk a little bit about demystifying credit card processing fees. So everybody kind of has questions about this, and it gets a little bit in the weeds, but essentially globally, there are three types of fees. So you have your dues and assessments, which are some kind of nominal percentage that are charged by the card brands, right? And then you have your merchant processor fees. So that would be like your bank fees or your LawPay fees, what it takes to kind of run the system. And then the big chunk, though, are your interchange fees. And a lot of people are like, well, how does this get dictated? How does this happen? Who makes these fees and who controls them, right? Because it's not your processor. These fees, interchange fees, they're promulgated by the card brands. So Visa, MasterCard, American Express, all that jazz, they basically all get together and they make these fees. So your 1%, your 3%, your 4%, things like that. So they come together and they do that. And they say, hey, we have to charge these fees because we have to take care of X stuff on the back end, like fraud and making sure these things go through, things like that. So what also goes into it, and what a lot of people don't realize too, factors that affect that interchange fee, right? So the card type affects it. If you have a debit card, it's going to be way lower than if you take, say, a rewards card from Visa. Right? So because they're getting more, the client is getting more benefits on the back end, right? So the card type affects it. The merchant type also affects it. A grocery store chain or a gas station chain is going to be very, very different from a solo practitioner, right? As far as risk and loss and everything like that. So that's going to also affect your interchange rate. And then also the information that you provide and how you take it, how you actually take the card and the payment. In-person credit card payments are going to be a lower rate because there's a less risk of fraud, right? Because I can see the client, I can see the credit card, I know the name matches my client. Chances are very low that this is a fraudulent transaction, right? But if somebody goes online and pays, it's a higher burden basically, or it's higher to see, or it's a higher fraud burden essentially at that point. So that's why. And so a lot of people ask now at this point, they're like, okay, if I'm being charged 3% to take this credit card, can I pass that on to my client? So that's commonly called surcharging. And the issue with this is you have to check with your state. So some states absolutely prohibit surcharging, right? Other states, like say Texas, we just had a ruling in that case, they overruled it. So Texas can now allow surcharging on it. A lot of states too, though, even if they allow surcharging, they don't allow you to profit from it, right? So say the credit card fee is 3% of the total transaction, you can't go and tell the client, hey, I'm charging you 6% to take this credit card, because you're unnecessarily making a profit off of that, if that makes sense. However, check with your local state and check with your local statutes, because this changes state by state and I'm a little bit freaked out about it. Also, it makes way more sense to just build this into the back end of your firm and build this into the back end of your practice, quite honestly. Because what happens is clients see that it's a psychological thing at the end of the day. They see a bill, they want to pay you $5,000, they have no issue with that, but then they see that you're tacking on an extra 3%. So the client feels like they're being penalized. Even though they understand why you're doing it, they still feel like they're being slighted, right? Like, I'm about to pay you $5,000 and you're going to charge me X amount to even do it. So easier to just build it into the back end, and then you don't have to worry about it. And at the end of the day, the ease of taking payments online and the ease that it provides and the convenience that taking payments online provides in comparison to, say, waiting for a check to clear or come in the mail, I'll take that 3% hit all day long. At the end of the day, I just want money in my pocket and I want it sooner rather than later. But that's just me. And then talking about a little bit of online payments in the age of COVID-19, which I know everybody is probably, sick of hearing a little bit, but I have been talking to attorneys from across the country, kind of like how their practice has changed and what they're doing to basically still have revenue and still make it so that they can operate their firm, right? So for instance, I've talked to an attorney in Indiana who was doing drive-through wills and drive-through probate documents, to where clients just had to drive up, they prepaid on LawPay, so they didn't have to worry about payment. Client just drove up, the witnesses were there, the attorneys were there with the sanitized clipboard, and then here you go and you're good to go. So there's that. And then also at the end of the day too, P&Cs, right? New client consults. Also, quick backstory on that. When I was a baby attorney, I didn't understand what P&C was and what it stood for, and I was too scared to ask. So I spent about 4 months or 2 months really at the firm trying to figure out, without asking, what P&C was. Potential new client. Yeah, that's where I'm at. 4 years later, my shame is still very, very real. Yeah. So say you have a P&C and you're doing it virtually, right? Because this is COVID-19 and nobody really wants to do in person unless you have to. So you're taking a P&C. What do you do as far as payment goes? We're not in person, so I can't take cash. I don't really want to take check either. I'm at home and I don't want them to send me anything to my home address, or I don't want to have to go drive up to work to get it. So what I do is I send the clients a payment link beforehand from LawPay. I say, here's how much my consult fee is. Please pay beforehand, otherwise we can't schedule this. And so that's what I do to make sure that they pay prior, because I think we've all been burned a little bit too many times when you take a consult and the client knows they have to pay, and then you get to the end of the consult and the client says, oh, I had no idea that I was being charged for this. You know that you were, and now you're put in this weird situation, right? So always take payment prior, pro tip, because I've learned. And then two, it's just easier to be able to take that over LawPay and just have them pay it online, over credit card, there you go, bing, bing, done. All right. Let's talk about, also scary, IOLTA compliance. This is also referred to as trust account compliance, so the terms are kind of interchangeable with this. So here's the biggest problem. Your IOLTA compliance is more than just a topic from your professional responsibility class or a question that you answered on the NPRE and then kind of forgot about, right? It's actually a very big deal. People get disbarred over this all the time and get sanctioned over it all the time. So what is it and what are we talking about? So it's really just comes down to separating your earned and unearned fees. So if you look at this, picture, so at the very bottom is your trust account, that's also called your IOLTA account. Now it's called your IOLTA account, fun fact, because it's an interest-bearing account. You don't get that interest and you don't get the benefit of that interest as the attorney. Usually that interest gets pushed over to your state bar and they use it for services like JLAP or, pro bono services, things like that. So that's why it's also called an IOLTA account, but usually that interest is passed on to the bar so that they can do services for you. So your unearned fees, your retainers, for instance, are put into that trust account. So client comes in, says, yes, I want to hire you, $5,000 goes into your retainer. So you haven't billed for it, you haven't billed anything yet, you haven't touched that yet. There it is, just waiting for you to bill on. And then you have your operating account that has your earned fees, right? So if this client has paid me $5,000 and I send her a bill for $3,000 at the end of the month, That means I get to move $3,000 from my trust account into my operating account. And then I can take that money from my operating account, right? So that's the biggest thing. What happens is people start playing around with the money in their trust account, right? So they'll say, oh no, the bill is due for rent on my workplace, or the light bill is coming due and I don't have any money to pay it. But I know that I just took this case and I know that I'm going to bill on this case and I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to. So I'm just going to take some money from my trust account to pay it. And that's where you get into trouble. Also, most bars, you have to certify your trust account, right? So when your trust account dips below zero, they're automatically notified. So really, it's just, if you're messing with it like that, you're just asking for trouble. And what LawPay does, and really just the leader in the field, and nobody was doing this when we started, is they do not commingle those funds, right? So your trust account and your operating account are completely separated. And no other service was offering that when we first started in the field. And honestly, I'm biased, but still the best at it. And then also too, LawPay prevents third-party debiting from your IOLTA account, right? So only you or whoever has access to your IOLTA account, to your trust account, can get into it, right? So no random person can come try to hack into it. It completely prevents it all. All right, let's talk about my favorite thing, improving and increasing client acquisition, right? So little bit of a hypo. You have a new client consult they want to retain, but you don't want to wait for a check to clear, or you don't want them to leave without paying, right? Because at the end of the day, what they don't tell you in law school is you also have to become a salesman. Even if all you ever wanted to do was draft briefs and be very under the radar, suddenly you're pushed into this position of, oh, not only do I have to sell myself in a non-sexual way, but I also need to become a bill collector, and I need to become a bill collector, and I also need to become a salesman. And it's this theory of always be closing, right? So I never want a client to leave my office if I can help it, unless they've paid, right? So there's this little sense of urgency that you can do with the client where I always say, hey, you don't have your checkbook or you don't have cash on you, completely fine. I take credit card. And then what I do is I add on top of that and I say, look, I don't start working until I get a signed fee agreement and until I get a retainer payment. So if you want me to start working and you want this done quickly, then we're going to have to work something out, but we absolutely do take credit card. And 98% of the time, if somebody doesn't have their checkbook or if they don't have cash with them, they'll whip out their credit card and pay me right there. Because why would I risk them leaving the office? Which, granted, I know how good I am and I know how good that consult was, and I'm not worried about them retaining me. But why would I let them leave my office, maybe go talk to a friend, go talk to a family friend that's an attorney, and get all these random things in their ears if I could have gotten them through the door, could have booked them right there, and I could have been working and billing on their case that same day, right? So it's just a matter of priorities for what you want. All right, now improving your processes, billing and collections. This is a fun one. So this is going to be different for bankruptcy versus just regular general practitioners, right? Because bankruptcy, you focus on debit card transactions, not credit card transactions, right? Because your credit card, like for instance, Chapter 7's, your credit card debt is going to be discharged, right? So it would be a little bit disingenuous for attorneys to say, hey, it's going to be a $10,000 retainer, put it on a credit card, that disappears anyway. Because then every bankruptcy attorney is going to suddenly be charging $20,000 to put something on a credit card that will then be discharged, right? So it has to focus on debit card transactions, and many attorneys wait until they're paid in full to file, or clients are either paying in lump sums or they're on a payment plan with their debit card. And again, that's their debit card. So you have to be careful when you offer that to clients and when you offer that option to clients, and make sure that they're using a debit card. And I would put that into your contract or your fee agreement too, so that they acknowledge it, make them initial it. And also their credit card authorization form, make them initial that it's a debit card transaction, right? So that you just don't even have to worry about it. That also, so billing and collections for general practice. So I always use a mixture of cash, credit card, and debit card transactions for my practice. I just, again, going back to, I wanted to get paid any which way that I possibly could. So I had no problem with getting paid in any manner or form that I could. And then, but my big thing on this is what I would do. So I usually sent out my invoices at the beginning of the month, usually on the 3rd or 4th day of the month. So the invoices would go out. I would then calendar something, I would put on my calendar a week later at 9 a.m. I would make a note and say 9 to 10 a.m. bill collection time. And that would be for a week after the invoices went out. And then I would either do it or the firm administrator would do it, but I would get a list of all the clients that haven't paid their invoice as of the time I was sending out my email and how much they owed. And then what I would do is I would turn on Rihanna's Bitch Better Have My Money. I would close my door and I would just spend an hour emailing all of my clients that hadn't paid yet. So essentially it would be, hi, Miss Smith, I see that you haven't paid your outstanding balance of X amount of money, right? And then I would say, you can click the link below my signature to remit payment immediately. Please let me know if you have any questions. Because with LawPay, they'll give you a link to just insert in your email. So I would just go down the list of my 10 or 15 clients that hadn't paid, and I would just send out that list. And then I was always very surprised at how many people would actually pay me as soon as I sent that out, because hey, most of the time clients just forgot about it, or the email came from, a firm administrator instead of you, so they didn't see it when their initial invoice came out. So very surprising that I would get paid after that, but that's the key to do it, to make it very easy too. All they had to do was click that link in my signature line. I already gave them their outstanding balance in that email, and they could just plug it in and go. Or you can direct them to your website. LawPay also, this is all included in your LawPay fees, by the way. It's all included, nothing's added on, there's no additional cost, but LawPay will also give you a link to put onto your web page, right? So you can have a client section and an invoice section where they can just log onto your web page and pay from that too. And you can also send out what's called Quick Bill, which is my favorite thing, especially when I had mediations coming up. So what I would do is, the Quick Bill feature allows you to send an email to a client for a specific amount of money. So I would say, oh no, mediations tomorrow, it's $1,000 mediation fee, and my client doesn't have enough money in the retainer to cover my fees and the mediation fee. So I would send a quick bill to the client, say, hey, it's $1,000 for the mediation fee, please pay immediately. And under that quick bill section, and then, sorry, my dog, but under that quick bill section, I could go and I could then, it'll monitor it. So it'll tell you, hey, the email was sent out, the email was opened by the client, and the email and the invoice was paid by the client. So you ensure that they even opened the invoice, which is really great and I love. And that's my favorite thing to do because I'm a creeper, and I also, as I said before, I'm a control freak, so I like to know everything that's going on with my payments. And then you can also set up clients with payment plans on their authorization form, on your credit card authorization forms. We'll talk about that in a minute. But really, there are so many options to just get it done. There was we always said in the firm, it was a big kind of unofficial motto was, it's your money, go and get it. Right? You have earned this money. There's no reason why they shouldn't pay it. They need to. It's your money. Go and get it. And then pro tip on this one for authorization forms. So this would be your credit card authorization form. If somebody wants to pay by credit card multiple times or get on a payment plan, have it echo your fee agreement language. And I'm revamping all these forms for LawPay, so you'll be able to access them online too. And so if you echo them, it makes it easier if there's a chargeback or a dispute. Makes it way easier for you to defend it at the end of the day, and LawPay helps you out with that anyway. But for instance, especially in your fee agreement, make sure if there's a third-party payor language, so say mom wants to pay for her son, make sure you put in there and have mom sign too about what happens with that money, because inevitably what'll happen is midway through the retainer, mom will say, no, my son's terrible, he's a degenerate, I don't want this, I want my money back. And so at that point, mom wants her money back. And it goes straight, and it varies whether mom is entitled to her money back or whether that's considered a gift to the son, right? But you can kind of alleviate all that by including specific language in your fee agreement as to what happens with that money if, for instance, somebody withdraws or somebody wants it back, things like that. So you can just be very careful with that and make sure to incorporate that into your fee agreement. Little things that can help you big time later on if there's a dispute. And then tips for getting money in the door. Shy. Don't be shy. I feel like I spent the first year and a half of my practice feeling like I was an imposter and shouldn't be there, right? At the end of the day, you deserve this. You are good at what you do. Don't be shy about demanding your money at the end of the day. I think a lot of people too are just like, oh, we had a bad hearing a week or two ago, and now this client's getting, this invoice, and this client's not going to want to pay this invoice, and I just don't even want to deal with it or press them on it. At the end of the day, you already earned that money. So it would be akin to you going to a mechanic and saying, hey, mechanic, thank you for fixing my car. I'm just going to take it, and then I'll think about paying you in a couple of weeks, right? Not going to happen. So at some point, you have to kind of divorce yourself, family law pun, you have to divorce yourself from the emotions of it all and say, look, this is business and I earned this money, and I know that you're not happy and that's fine, but I earned this money and it's mine. I'm entitled to it at the end of the day. And obviously you're an attorney, finesse it, but you get where I'm going with it. So also be practical, be organized, bill clients regularly, predictably, and as close to payday as possible. There's a reason why I always sent my invoices out the 3rd or 4th day of the month, and it's because I wanted to make sure their paycheck cleared right as they got my invoice. So that's the easiest way to do it. And just honestly, just do it predictably at the same time every month. Don't be crazy about it. If you send evergreen letters out, do it at a specific time every month, things like that. And then, how much time? Oh, good. We have a little bit of time to talk about PCI compliance, which is also known as stop emailing credit card numbers out or stop accepting credit card numbers over email from your clients. So PCI compliance is essentially, it stands for payment card industry compliance. So essentially the credit card brands came together and promulgated some things. The credit card brands said, hey, people aren't taking credit cards in a secure fashion and the states haven't caught up yet. Right, so we need to promulgate our own rules and codes. So the credit card brands did that. Now most states have incorporated these actually, so it's not as much of a standalone thing anymore. But essentially it's saying, hey, you need to have strong access control measures if you're accepting credit cards and you're keeping credit card data. So what I mean is, in practicality, how this works, right? You have a credit card authorization form. A client wants to pay you monthly, wants to pay you $500 per month. They filled out an authorization form. It has their full credit card number, all of their information on it. You go and say you go into LawPay and you do scheduled payments. You input their credit card number. You charge them for their first payment. You're good. Now, what do you do with that piece of paper that has their entire credit card number on it and their CVV code and everything, right? If you want to keep that piece of paper and you want to keep that credit card number on it, you have to, 1, redact the CVV code, and then 2, you have to keep it in a secure locked area of your office, right? So there are certain security measures you have to take so that nobody with sticky fingers, for instance, can come in, take it, and use this person's credit card number to their advantage. The best thing about LawPay is that they store all of the credit card numbers. They store all of the credit card information, encrypted, tokenized, everything in their own vault. So once you run that credit card payment, that card is stored. Right, so what you can do at that point, once you run it through LawPay, is take the credit card form, the authorization form, redact all but the last 4 digits of the card number, redact the CVV code and the expiration date, make a copy of that paper, put the copy in the client's file, and then shred the original copy. And that way, you're not having to store any credit card numbers, you're not having to put yourself at risk or your office at risk, or you're not having to tempt anybody in your office, essentially, with taking this. So easiest thing to do, in my opinion. I think we might have to get to, oh yeah, I think Spencer's gonna come back on. Sorry, I might have gone a little bit over. Let's see.
Hi, no problem at all. I saw that you were so close to wrapping up your slides. I was gonna see if you wanted to finish up. It looked like you were on like slide 31 of 30. Did you wanna add a couple?
I'm on.
No,
they're just like pictures. No, it's fine.
In that case, I will change the slide here, and it'll only take a second because, as I mentioned before, I've done this 4 times already, so I know exactly what I'm doing. And LawPay Q&A, there you are. Okay, so while I'm pulling this up, thank you so much, Jordan. That's Jordan Turk. But, you know, you donated your time. We wanted to donate an extra letter to you. We do have a lot of pretty hard-hitting questions. The most important, I'm sure, you had mentioned that during quarantine and lock-in, or whatever you want to call it, a sort of life raft has been Tiger King. The first question was, do you think Carol Baskin killed her husband? Now, I don't know if you want to answer this in such a public forum.
100%. I have no problem with it. Carol Baskin absolutely killed her husband. That power of attorney that said, or disappearance, killed her husband. Done.
Okay, so that pretty much wraps that first question for us. Not wishy-washy at all, are you? Okay. So, I should probably warn you as we're going into the Q&A, we might also hear from my neighbors. They're not like presenting or anything. I just noticed that they like to stomp around a lot when they walk. But anyway, the next question that we have was, what is the worst bankruptcy case you had heard of in terms of mismanagement or lack of expertise?
Oh man, this is just a friend of a friend, but there's one form, and now I'm blanking on it, but there's one form of bankruptcy where if you don't meet the means test, I think that it's a rebuttable presumption that you can't file, I think for Chapter 7. And they said, screw it, we're going to beat that rebuttable presumption. And every other bankruptcy attorney would have said, you're never going to beat that, like ever. And I guess she just went with it, and this attorney was so terrible, and it ended up just being an absolute mess. I forgot I think there were sanctions in that case. It was not good from what I remember.
Let me see. Going down the line, okay, as I understand it, not me, obviously, I haven't practiced law since doing mock trial in high school. As I understand it, clients have 2 billing cycles to contest a charge on their credit card statements. I don't understand how a lawyer is paid faster if the lawyer has to be prepared to cover a charge back for 60 to 90 days after the charge. Does that make sense? It's a little...
Yes, no, it does. Yeah, so it depends, and it depends on, for one, your clientele, because most of the clients that I have at the end of the day never ever, I think I had one client out of 4 years instigate a chargeback, and it was complete BS. We were using LawPay. We 100% won. It was like written into our fee agreement. There's certain language that you can put in your fee agreement and your credit card authorization forms that make it easier for you on a chargeback. Also, LawPay is just better than most, I think, about helping with that. A lot of people are like, oh, the clients always win or the customers always win on that. And actually with LawPay, I think it's the opposite. Our merchants usually come out on top with that. And it's because frankly, we help them. So it honestly, I don't know, it just depends. I only ever dealt with one chargeback out of the hundreds of clients that I had. So it really depends, but I always got paid faster with no issues. And I just had the one chargeback that I won.
Phenomenal. Okay. Dude, we have a good bank here. I think we'll fill the whole time. Let's see. This one says, can you explain the entire chargeback process where the client disputes a charge and claims dissatisfaction with services rendered?
Yeah, so usually with that is my understanding of it. And we have like a whole ops team that you can call that will probably give you a more in-depth response. But broad strokes would be they call the issuing bank of the card and they say, oh, hey, I don't want this to go through. I hated this service. I was very dissatisfied with it. I never agreed to it, right? And then what happens is LawPay or whoever your merchant processor is will usually kick in and say, hey, can you send us your fee agreements? Can you send any authorizations that you have? Can you send any emails that you have between you and this client with regard to billing, and we'll handle this for you essentially. But I don't know so much about I feel like when usually they say dissatisfied, they're also saying I never agreed to this charge. And usually that's BS because you have this fee agreement at the end of the day that they signed. It's a contract.
That makes sense. Can LawPay accept wire transfers? And if so, is there an additional charge? And they had given an example. I have an international client and the wire transfer fee from my bank was $25.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So LawPay doesn't do wire transfers. We do offer e-checks, which is essentially kind of the same realm, right? You're inputting the bank routing information and all that jazz. So it's kind of like a de facto wire transfer. And those, no percentages taken out. It's straight $2 per e-check, and that's it.
Cool. Really good momentum here. Do you need a separate IOLTA, or maybe you're supposed to say IOLTA? Sorry, I'm new to that one. Do you need a separate IOLTA for every state you practice in? For example, DC, Maryland, New York. And if you have a separate IOLTA, if you have separate accounts for different states, is LawPay able to separate the processing of fees?
Yep, so 2 answers to that one. I'm not sure about whether each state requires a different one. Honestly, do not know. But I do know that LawPay can absolutely separate out different IOLTA accounts from the same firm, right? So for instance, if you wanted like 5 IOLTA accounts for the same firm, you can absolutely do that. And you can route which IOLTA account you want a specific payment to go to.
IOLTA, thank you. I learned even more from you. Are consultation fees allowed for potential bankruptcy clients?
I do not know enough about that, but I would imagine so, as long as you took it in a debit card or credit. I mean, I just wouldn't put anything on a credit card is the thing. But honestly, another bankruptcy attorney can chime in here, because I really only started delving into it, and I'm doing bankruptcies kind of on a pro bono type deal right now until I learn a little bit more about it.
I know to me it feels like these are some of the more difficult questions that I've seen in presentation, and usually I think that's because you covered everything else so well. So now they're just like really getting into the weeds, but or not that there's anything wrong with that. We're learning a lot here. Can you set up future payments for the life of a bankruptcy case? So for example, take a down payment to start the case and then set it up to draft in 2 months and then in another 2 months.
On debit cards, yes, but on credit cards, no, because the issue is that debt eventually can get discharged, right? So you're basically kind of gaming the system if you're putting your attorney's fees, or you're having your client put your attorney's fees on a credit card. Can't do it.
Let me see. Does LawPay debit the credit card charge from operating and place the full trust amount into trust?
Can you reread that?
This one says, does LawPay debit the CC, I'm assuming credit card, does LawPay debit the credit card charge from operating and place the full trust amount into trust?
Yes, so your fee, so essentially the full amount is placed into trust, right? So if a client paid you $5,000, $5,000 is going into your trust account. And then LawPay debits its fees from your operating account, I believe, once a month.
Okay. And I think we have like 2 or 3 more questions, and then we can wrap it up. I feel like we have you in the hot seat here. Really?
No, you're fine.
All right, good. Oh, and I liked how your dog interrupted. It reminded us of the video we put together for before the sessions. Okay. If by phone payment, how do you verify it is a debit card? And does LawPay have a tool to verify the type of card?
Right. So no tool to verify it. Like for instance, because the dream for bankruptcy attorneys would be, oh, hey, they try to pay by credit card, we're going to stop you. Right. But that's not how it works. Essentially, that would be extremely difficult. And I don't know if the technology actually even exists for that right now. So normally you would just ask the client and say, please verify that this is a debit card, right? Their card would say debit on it. They would know if it was a credit card or a debit card. And if not, have them send you have them read it to you or something like that. But essentially, debit cards usually will always say debit.
Okay.
But yeah, you're kind of at the mercy of your client, and I would have your client basically sign off on this saying that it's a debit card and make them sign something or acknowledge something saying that this is their debit card.
Right. Cover all your bases.
Mm-hmm.
And does LawPay integrate with cloud-based practice management systems like MyCase, Clio, etc.?
Oh yeah, Clio, 100%. I think we're actually the preferred, I think we might be the only or the preferred payment vendor for Clio. I think MyCase is the only one that we don't, but pretty much every single other cloud-based software or firm management practice, we 100% integrate into.
Okay. Well, I'm wondering if we can, we have 3 minutes here. Let me see, until 11 o'clock. You know what? I think this might be a good time to wrap it up. Just the next session that we have is with Matt Hartley at 12 o'clock. And I think I need to just see if we have any housekeeping notes.
And then while you're doing that, I mean, honestly, and I see like more questions populating, y'all feel free to email me. I'm just jturk@lawpay.com. And I will answer any and all questions you have. So that's jturk, so JTURK @lawpay.com. Happy to answer anything.
Did you have any other closing statements you wanted to wrap with or anything like that?
No, all good. I mean, thank you all so much for the opportunity. I'm really passionate about this because I had to chase my own clients down half the time and get them to pay me. And so I had to get over that awkwardness, fairly quickly. So thank you all for letting me impart some wisdom, hopefully, and some stories. And I just hope that somebody got something out of this.
I know I was learning a lot from it, and you're right. I mean, I pay all of my bills either through electronic check or Venmo, so this makes a lot of sense to me. And thank you again. I'm sure we said thank you maybe once or twice, but thank you again. Really informative, and also anybody who is still sticking around. If you missed the beginning, all of the sessions are recorded and they can be accessed later. And I think there's also a follow-up email that goes out. But I think that's everything. And unless I get a message from my team telling me I forgot something big, okay, I think we're going to wrap the webinar.
All right. Thank you all so much.
Thanks again, Jordan. Thank you all for joining.